on, everyone? Dude, we should start with a shout out to Vipes and the amazing hype videos he's been putting out on a daily basis on Twitter. If you're not following at Dad of Cats, you're missing out on the Badger Punk Dig wrestling inspired hype videos that are going out every day. They're hilarious. Thanks, man. Keep them coming.
All right, so apologies everyone too. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so I'm not. This is actually a pretty exciting call. I'm just not feeling 100%. So, but wanted to use the time I think today to just get into what's kind of happened over the last week, and if there's any questions, provide more transparency on like TCL options and even BIP 66 in terms of like, it was multifaceted. It obviously funded more options in this current round. It increased emissions for sushi, which I believe as of last night have been corrected. So the sushi LP on Badger is closer to I think like 156% or something now. Just a little issue there with like the bot that basically harvests everything, since it's an auto compounding feature and 50% of the rewards are in the vault, or they compound. So happy to get into any of these in more detail. I think would it make sense just to kind of start with just kind of matter of factly kind of everything that's taken place over the last week and get into questions? Or Wasabi, do you have any thoughts? Just trying to think through what makes the most sense. Okay, I'll just kick this off. And I guess one last thing too, I don't know if Tom's OX is on, or William, if you have any more information on it, but just in terms of the POAPs, I know those usually go pretty quickly. Is this I think the last event where he's doing the POAP, and we've got to like basically reset it for another? I think he did like a batch of 10 or something, right?
I think from my conversation, he's happy to keep doing them. He had a designer do a batch of 10. So I think last one was 9, so this one would be 10. So we just need to figure out the next steps in terms of getting another batch designed. I think it would be cool to get some like DIGG UMA crossover designs, or some Badger Punk designs, or just something that's reflective of the recent trends that have been happening in DIGG. Like I've seen some super cool POAP designs from DAOs all over, and would love to get more different colors and personalities and stuff going on those.
Yeah, very cool.
William
And I think he says
we'll revisit the designs and can potentially award options. So yeah, that's one thing. Like we do have some options left over in this supporting DIGG pool that can go to someone if anyone wants to raise their hand and kind of either design or get designed some cool new POAPs. That would be huge for us.
So I guess just thinking back to the BIP 66, which passed last week, and then thanks to the core team was implemented really quickly. There was 3 core components to it. One was a short-term emissions boost that would consolidate the emissions on Uniswap and also revise the 12-week emissions plan for DIGG such that it would, beginning in week 5, which is effective last Thursday, would provide like a 5-week increase. And so there was that aspect. There was the additional options going to additional rewards going to DIGG rewards going to the options pool. And then there were the TCL, obviously. So I guess just kind of walking through each of those. The APY has been incorrect for the last few days. Again, I mentioned a second ago, it was just the vault, majority of the rewards auto compound. And so they're waiting on the harvester bot just basically to run. And so it's been implemented, and now the APY for sushi should be correct. And so that obviously is meant to be a 4 to 5 week incentive to help ensure the migration from Uniswap to sushi, and then additionally help bring in additional liquidity providers and incentivize that over the next few weeks. The options have been included in dig.finance as well. So again, there's no actions there that need to be taken until we basically work with UMA to mint and provide the collateral on the contract, which, given the fact that we're expected to have our 3rd rebase today, positive rebase and unlock more rewards, that should probably be taking place sometime this week, just from my last conversations with UMA. And then obviously there's more to come with that, and just in terms of like getting everything so we can claim them and redeem them, which we can talk about in a second. And then the last is the TCL, which I don't know if everyone saw the announcement from William, but it went, I believe, into effect last Thursday. It was the actual announcement from William actually had the transaction IDs, but I believe it was 3 transactions that totaled, I think, roughly right over 3 million, which was 10% of the total 20%. Again, the intent was to do it in a few transactions, and so we got through the 3 transactions, and then we're going to wait and do the rest later, and then DIGG basically shot over peg, which was really exciting. But at the same time, the remaining TCL injection is on pause at the moment, just to ensure we want to implement it when things get closer to peg, whenever that time comes. So, and that was part of the proposal as well. It's just that anything over, I think it was 1.2 would go to like discretion of council, or would be paused for later implementation. So the remaining 3 million or so in liquidity at the time is still set to be injected. It's just not yet been injected due to the increase over the last week or so, which is really exciting.
And just to give you an update, so it looks like, so the TCL went by Thursday the 5th, and then I looked at it on the 6th, and we were at around 5 million on liquidity on Sushi, and then just now we're up to 6.7 million. So there's been almost 2 million in additional liquidity. That's not from the treasury, that's from these incentives kicking in. So seems like it's really doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So that's everything from the proposal. I just wanted to follow up on that, especially since the APY was just corrected, or it's been correct, but at least what was showing up was incorrect. So now that that's been corrected, wanted to share that and the other updates. Are there any questions on that? I mean, I think kudos to the Badger core team, for managing a really busy rollout last week. I don't know if everybody else saw, but like obviously Badger Boost, everything with Convex, and then on top of this, everything with the proposal. It's really been a crazy week for the core team, and they've just been cranking on all cylinders and really made sure that everything happened quickly for the DIGG proposal that went out last week. So just trying to make sure I cover all the bases here and transparently as possible, kind of provide an update on everything. Are there any other questions on that, or any other topics regarding to that we want to go into more detail on at the moment?
Did you hit the current unlock options pool, and how much more was added to that, and what we've unlocked so far? I think it'd be good to touch on that so far.
Yeah, let me pull up. So I can tell you in terms of GDIGG, which is not really relevant, but I will say that in terms of total supply, maybe that's a better way of saying it. We added about 66% more to the options pool in DIGG rewards. At the time, that was, I think, 1.5 million USD. But the really cool thing about the options pool rewards is that it's going through the same positive rebases as everything else. And so I think the rewards pool is up to like 2.5 million now or something. I don't have it in front of me. I'm checking right now, actually. Yeah, 2.4 million. So, I mean, the KPI options are not something that are super common in DeFi, right? Like this is like experimental territory in terms of us trying to use options as a way to incentivize holding BDIG. And when compared to APYs, it's a much more strategic and efficient use of emitting DIG, because its emissions are based on some level of positive rebasing that has to occur. And so when you emit the DIG, it's that you're at least having the direction that you want to go. So we want to try to obviously focus more on options in the future and continue this, which is why we set it up in perpetuity. But again, it's not really that widely known right now. So, but right now the cool thing is that it's rebasing in parallel, and the options pool totals about 2.4 million today, and we're only 10 days into this. We're on track to unlock our 3rd day today, and like anybody here has the ability to go out and still participate in this options program by holding BDIG through the 15th. I mean, before the 15th. So the final snapshot is on the 15th, at which time the final round of options are calculated and then shared on dig.finance. And then at that point, whatever amount of rewards are unlocked within this cycle can be claimed and redeemed. So, I think that I'm personally very excited. I mean, obviously something like KPI options is something that I've been working on for 3 months now, that kind of an extension of what Jonto initially started back in April. So very excited to see that that's going in the right direction. But yeah, that's to answer Wasabi's question. It's about a 66% increase in total supply that the proposal included, which at the time went from like 0.8 million or something to 1.5 or 0.7 to 1.5 to now it's roughly around 2.4. And after the rebase today, I'm expecting it'll probably be closer to 2.6 or 7. So it's just, this options payout pool could theoretically rise pretty quickly. And I think dig.finance actually shares some potential outcomes based on like conservative, medium, and like 3 different potential rebase outcomes over the next 20 days or so.
Yeah, so I see we've got a couple of questions in the chat. If you want to get up on stage, just raise your hand and we'll get you up here. But let's see. Vipes is asking, with that much liquidity, will the UMA Oracle be functional? So right now, it's not, the UMA Oracle is not being used. It's still the Badger Oracle that just looks at Sushi Swap and Uniswap liquidity. So that's working as expected. I haven't heard any issues with the Oracle since then. Hashair is saying, how do options roll over to next cycle if previous cycle pays out? So for that, the options, you have to think of the options as two different parts. There's the prize pool. So that would just be however much is left from the original prize pool that's not paid out in this cycle. And then the number of options, which is like the 177,000. So that just, there will be 177,739 options in every period. And just think of that as like a percentage. So like 100% of them is 177,000. So that just gets divided into 100 to allocate someone's proportional share of the prize pool. So there's the prize pool, and then there's your proportion of it. Did I explain that somewhat coherently, Wiesek?
Yeah, no, it's right. And I think you bring up a point there that's probably on people's minds. Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but like if the next 20 days go as well as we could expect, and the majority of the rewards are exhausted, this has already begun to be considered, and we're trying to figure out. We obviously want to keep running this, and so the remaining rewards would roll over, which would be like 2 days of unlocked rewards if we were to roll out the rest of the days. But there's been more consideration. I mean, if we look at the options program to this point, it's really been almost like in a beta. And so there's been a lot more, thankfully, some more people coming in and trying to provide some more like support to scale and grow and like automate this process. And at the same time, in the coming weeks, if like things continue down this path, which I'm very optimistic they will, I'm very excited, to be quite frank, but at the same time, don't want to get too far ahead. But if things continue down this path, we probably need to think about a few things. And so I think I don't know if a retroactive or a second proposal is the right way to go about it. I mean, Poe and anyone else here, feel free to speak in. But basically, wanting to abide by like the governance of the community, there may be a need to think about like how we want to refund the options. Like again, the TCL basically committed all the remaining dig to this. So like the Badger team basically went all in. So if we want to like think about this more, we might have to think about a way for the Badger team to sell some of the dig from the TCL and maybe refund it, or maybe allocate some of the TCL to the options to refund it. These aren't ideas that I'm saying we're going to do. I'm just trying to think of different ideas that may be required. And obviously, in my opinion, they're going to require a proposal because they're new and they're different and they're not anything that was articulated. But the point being is that that's already been starting to be considered and thought about, so that we don't get to the end of the month with no rewards and then realize the next cycle is basically minuscule, right?
And the other thing that I was gonna say, the other thing that plays into that too is the Stability Vault, because I was trying to get Jonto here this week to talk about Stability Vault, but he's out of town, so we're aiming to get him next week. And obviously the Stability Vault is aimed to keep DIGG at peg, whereas the options program is aimed to get it above peg and kind of expand the market cap, right? So those are sort of have divergent design goals. So we need to figure out how to get those all pulling in the same direction. If we're happy with the market cap of DIGG being generally where it is and want it to be kind of like a smoother growth going out, then I think it makes sense to focus more attention on the Stability Vault. If we think it, is not at its full potential and needs to get much bigger, then maybe reloading even more options is the way to go. But that's just how I see it. I think there's a huge role for the community to weigh in and about the appropriate size for DIGG and what we see its function going forward.
I see Drew Boy asked the question about options and lasting. I hope my last comment, I didn't see your question till just now. I hope my last comment on options answered that for you. The point is we need to consider and prepare for that potential situation. But it also just means that the current moment is that much more of a reason. Again, there's 5 days left to actually participate in this options program, and 35% of the options or the DIGG rewards are allocated to new purchases. So the new purchases can be made up and through the 15th this month. And so those options are there's still quite a bit of options that can be allocated. And so it's not actually there's not closed participation. And that was the goal, right? We wanted options to continue incentivizing buying during and also incentivize holding. So after the 15th, all DIGG purchases for options would just go to the next event. They basically roll over. So this event is actually not closed yet, for what it's worth. Sorry, we have 103 people listening, and the last week has been incredible, and I'm not feeling well, and I'm sorry because I probably don't sound nearly as excited as I should be, but I just wanted to reiterate that it's been a very long week for me, and I'm coming off of I think my body's just about to shut down. So, but personally for me, it's been incredibly rewarding to see over the last 4 or 5 months, the dojo go from 15, 20 people to 104 people, and we've got the options program and Uma's collaboration, and just it feels like this DIGG community is growing in a really awesome way. And I wish I could spend a lot more time talking about a lot more things. And there's been a lot of other really cool ideas in the Rebase channel around some really strategic initiatives that some have proposed with balancer pools. And I wanted to say, for what it's worth, that I think all those are really great ideas. And if I haven't responded to something, please don't take it as it's not a good idea. I would really encourage everyone here, as we start to grow this community, to start thinking about ways that we can bring DIGG to other teams. What are other strategic ways we can use DIGG, whether it's Rari pools or whether it's balancer pools or whatever it is. There's this next part is where I think we want to try to further grow DIGG's presence across the entire DeFi community, and that's the really exciting part. So just wanted to take a moment to offer that to a lot of the really cool ideas I've seen out there. It says Harvest is looking to implement.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just Vibe says, I don't know if it's a joke. He's looking at Poopster and saying, heard Harvest is looking to implement. Anyways, that's the lion's share of, I think, what we wanted to share today, just to make sure everybody got an update based on the last proposal. Happy to go into anything else, or Wasabi, if you have anything on your end that you want to get into.
I was going to say, we have Vipes on the call, and I see a lot of Badger punks in the audience here. I know there's was a separate discussion that was spun up for that. I don't know, Vipes, if you're in a place where you can talk, I would love to hear kind of what your current thinking of that is, and some steps going forward. So if you're unaware, this is kind of an initiative that Vipes started doing, just designing these really cool avatars that a kind of, a riff on CryptoPunks with different attributes and stuff. And it just started as like this fun thing that he was doing, and then turned into, so many people on the Badger Discord getting these and customizing it. He's just been like incredibly generous with his time, DIGG guys showing up, like, making tweaks to them. And now it's looking like we're trying to figure out how can this get formalized? Like, do we mint them as NFTs? Do we roll this into a bigger part of Badger and DIGG communities in some kind of structured way? So I'm not sure, Vipes, if you can want to talk about it, if you're in a place where you can talk, but just wanted to say thanks for doing that. And if you guys are interested in Badger Punks, head over to that the Discord where there's an active discussion going on. Tritium, what's up?
Not much. I just saw there was a dojo going on and was between two things, so figured I'd jump in and give it a listen.
Nice. I don't want to derail anything on this call. We spoke about it a little bit last time with Spada, but yeah, the I guess badgers, as we're calling them, the portrait emoji, avatar. They're going well. I guess we're just looking for some strategies right now, or some design details and attributes over in the Badger Punks channel in the Discord. So if you want to join and weigh in, provide some feedback, that'd be great. I guess one thing for DIGG wise is if anyone has any ideas for other videos, shoot me a DM, and because I want to keep releasing more DIGG content, so let me know.
Nice. Those videos are awesome. Hey, Tritium.
Hey, it seems like we're halfway through a dojo and there's not much to talk about. Did we talk about the other half of this TCL at all?
We did
I was
briefly.
going to ask you about that. I think.
Okay, then never mind.
Can you give us a TLDR for? I guess we're above peg, so it doesn't make sense to add now. But if we go back around peg, it can be added.
Tritium, I basically just mentioned that we put in, the 3 transactions, and we were kind of doing it slowly, kind of ensure everything went well. And then after DIGG shot up, given that it's above the 1.15, mentioned the proposal, like at this point, we're kind of pausing and waiting to see what the best use of it is. That was kind of the extent of it. So.
Yeah, cool. It sounds about right. Right. I think, yeah, like one of the things we were trying to figure out is like, what does that mean, right? Is everything's rebasing up? But I think what Poe had proposed is that we take on the day that we actually did the TCL, however much basically Bitcoin is left to be allocated, right? And then kind of we can allocate that however we want, when we want. So that sounds good. I still think there's some interesting conversations that can maybe be had around, like BDIGG, WBTC LP, and then also maybe like a little more LP with ETH, right? Because there are these pools there, and sometimes they like pop up into price things, or there's times when people have gotten accidentally routed through them, and just having enough liquidity there so that they get arbed out and that they actually reflect what's going on. It's kind of just enough to keep the bots active. But again, it probably doesn't make sense to do that when DIGG's at like 130 plus.
No, this is a really good point, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. And I like, Poe, your suggestion of, since we're clearly above peg, to maybe use the lesser of the two. So I believe this would require a proposal. So I'm happy to put one together and kind of like put this over the next week or so. But if we were to do that and use the remaining BTC rather than trying to increase the BTC to meet the current DIGG, allocating some, it doesn't have to be a lot, but even some to the BDIGG pools. What I experienced, like the last 2 weeks, I spent a lot of time to non-DeFi users sharing with them about DIGG. And then one common denominator in all of it was that they wanted to buy straight BDIGG. So if we can make it easier for non-DeFi people to come in, at the same time, give a chance for these pools to get arbed out, and then also just, ensure people don't get sent to an illiquid pool and have someone spend a ton of money for very little DIGG. I actually think that would be a really, really great idea to allocate. We could even throw a little bit at Uni V3 with BDIGG and see, like, put it in a tight range and see what happens. It might be kind of a fun experiment. Not a ton, but it's efficient, so it might be a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, my take there, and I'd be interested to also see what Poe thinks about this. But as I recall, like the last chance to buy DIGG and get drops is in 5 days, right on the 15th of the month.
Yes.
So maybe, I mean, I don't know if we can do it, but maybe it makes sense if you guys have people that are actively wanting to buy BDIG, right? Maybe it does make sense, even if we just do it for like a week, right? And just like whack some into BDIG LP and be like, hey, you know, last chance, we just wanted to make this easy 1 week LP, and then we can pull it or leave it or see what happens. But, you know, based on what you just said and based on the fact that we've got 5 days, maybe it makes sense to try to just do something.
So I know we had discussed this about a month ago, and to be honest, I have no idea where this went or if it even went anywhere. But we kind of had the same conversation, and I mentioned that if there was liquidity for BDIG on Polygon, I would be actively. It would be very easy for me to accumulate. So I don't know where like any of that went, but I totally agree with like moving forward with BDIG instead of DIG itself. I think that's much easier for like people to comprehend and understand and be able to use. So I think that the focus should be there, but curious as to where we stand on Polygon as well, I guess. I know that's more of a core team deal.
I mean, so the two issues with Polygon, well, so one issue is we don't have a Badger tree yet, so we can't really launch sets there that have emissions. But you're not talking about sets, right? You're just talking about liquidity and holding it. The other thing I'm not sure about is like how good our subgraphs are and whether the infrastructure to like calculate how much dig people has is capable of looking at Polygon. And then I'm also not sure if we have a stable multi-sig setup yet there, right? We're working on it, and within the next like week or two, we should have all this infrastructure in place. But I think that's something we could do, but I think that's way less realistic. It all may be unrealistic in the next 5 days, right? But I think Polygon is significant.
Sure. It's
more
probably unrealistic. Right? No, of course. But I guess my point is that the easier we can make it for people to use and acquire BDIG, I think that should be our goal, because I feel like that would really make it simple for just average Joe to get in and I don't know. So I'm encouraging more liquidity wherever we can provide it. Ethereum's been, because all the NFTs, the gas it's been difficult to operate. I guess that's why I've brought up Polygon, because for smaller farmers as myself, it's difficult for me to be able to honestly just purchase DIG on Ethereum.
Yeah, EIP 1599 did not make life easier for small fish. Hopefully it'll get better, right? I think the system's just adjusting and maybe gas will go back down, but I get it. So I don't know. I mean, like that, like what the easiest move would be to, and probably the most durable move, but it maybe doesn't make sense right now because DIG's so far above peg, would be to just like whack it into sushi swap, right? Like the Uni V3 thing, there's a little bit more to like think about. And then like we don't have scripts already ready to do that. Although it shouldn't be that big of a deal to write them. And then there's a lot of like thinking around the bands and whatnot. But like for a short-term thing, maybe that's doable. And I do kind of think that like above peg, right? Like with V3, you can do a real tight band and get a lot more for a lot less. Right, so we're not just like pumping so much in. Well, yeah, maybe not even. I'm not. I don't know. That would need more thought. Maybe it's just can we do this all in 5 days? But the more I think about it, the less likely it sounds.
Right. Like if we think about what's realistic here, I think my takeaway is this. For Uni V3, let's pause. It might make sense to put a bounty out there. Actually, I think that would probably be the most logical. I think maybe the thing that we should explore right now in the near term is looking at the BDIG pool to see if that in the next 5 days, it's going to be, we know that it's an easier place for non-DeFi users to come in, which have been part of what's been driving the run a little bit. And then at the same time, it gives everybody a chance to arb out this opportunity. And then, to Poopster's point, it's an easier pathway for people to come into the DIG family. So I don't know if that requires any sort of proposal, addendum or something. Poe, Tritium, I see we have Spot on here too. Happy to take you guys' thoughts on this to kind of allocate some of the TCL to a different pool like BDIG, but I think that might be a very feasible and more like something we could do in the next 5 days that would make a difference.
I mean, my take is that if we were to like kick off an RFF today, and then there was general agreement, right? So if there was nobody going like, "Hey, this is a bad idea," then we could probably do that with a council vote, as the allocation of funds has already been made. But I think, as long as is nobody, as long as there's no question, I think we can just do that through the council. But we do need to give it a little bit of time. And then again, I think we should have Poe in because he's got a big brain for this stuff, and if he thinks it's a stupid thing to do right now, then I would agree with him.
Poe's way smarter than me, so
Yeah.
I'll just say that. So whatever I say, Poe says something else, I would go with him. But no, jokes aside, one of the things I just wanted to bring up here, guys, was the original idea around BDIG was for that vault to have an inherent an underlying stability strategy. The goal was eventually, when we can get the stability vault off the ground and building that reserve and ideally maintaining it in a much tighter range just from its trading methodology, then you would convert the BDIG vault, which has a decent percent of the DIGG. I know it's less than it used to be, but a decent percentage of the DIGG total supply in there. And then, that would attract, or that would help just have more of an impact on the market, because if most of the DIGG's sitting in there, and then that DIGG's what's being used for these stability strategies, then inherently, that vault is in more control of the market dynamics, which are supportive of the underlying token mechanics, which are sell when it's above and buy when it's below.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I think in that case, maybe there's a kind of 2 or 3 step process here where we could do some things starting this week to fund some liquidity there, and then have that transition into going back to the stability vault in the coming weeks too, and implementing some stuff there too. Is that kind of where you're getting at, Spada?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, I don't have a fixed thought on, when TCL should go there, if at all. I'm just more giving some more context so you can better be informed around timeframes and maybe different decisions, right? Again, it was just an initial idea. The stability vault is ready to go, and it's really, in a position now where actually can have a positive impact and start building a decent reserve, which is fantastic. But it's not live, and it doesn't have capital in it, right? It's not like there's $5 million in there will actually start accumulating much. And I think just another thing to be conscious to is Stability Vault has gone through internal testing, peer review, smart contract advisory board, and was audited. So it's good from a security perspective, but just following our security practices, and most likely would need to be unguarded to start. So I really don't see much liquidity going into that vault over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, we are working to. There's a few more things we need to finish up, but we have a few people. We're going to really try to get that out the door in the next few days, right? And hopefully, maybe it will take until next week, but to at least get it up in the experimental zone with some sort of a cap on it. But again, I think they're kind of 2 different questions, right? One is about what BDIG is and how we're incorporating the stability vault, and it's a good point, and we're on it, and that's a good thing to talk about, right? And then the other thing is about liquidity, how much it's worth, how much user utility it will bring, and then whether it's worth putting in TCL at 1.3 or plus, right? Which is not maybe the best kind of move from a trading point of view. But if you guys think that there's tons of additional DIGG that will be bought, then maybe that doesn't matter.
I kind of want to expand on what Spatter Boom was saying with purchasing DIGG when it's below peg and then selling when it's above, I guess. And I think that my question there would be, is there a way that we can gamify that and make it easy for anybody to do? I mean, I don't know if that's the best strategy, but it would be cool if I could, because I don't honestly, I don't feel like I have the time to be able to sit there and watch the price and you know what I mean? If there was a cool dashboard that incorporated all of that I could just go to and be like, oh, it's time to buy DIGG, or oh, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
So I think there's like a few ways to, so the stability vault itself, right, automates it. So that's like a bot that's doing that based on particular parameters. What you're talking about, I think, is like encouraging users to do that.
Yeah.
Normally, the way I would do that would be with some sort of like emissions or, reward, but we've spent, unless we decide not to do the TCL, we've spent all the dig, right? There's not really any dig left to emit at this point. So I'm not sure, like, I mean, we could create a portal or we could, I mean, it's probably some dev work that would take a while, but, like we could have like some tool where you could get an email when dig's below peg or set up a
Oh.
Discord bot that, tweets a lot to our Discord saying, buy dig, but
It's just an idea. I'll just
I
throw
don't think
something out
that's the
there.
gamification you were really looking for, right? Usually you got to be able to win something. And the thing is, unless we decide not to do so much TCL, there's really nothing left to be won.
I see
I have
1500
a
Badger. I
follow-up.
don't know who
I have
can
a
admit.
follow-up question, Weezik, for you. I mean, I was intrigued that you said you were speaking to a lot of people who wanted to buy dig and they wanted to do BDig. Can you dig deeper into the psychology there? Like, are they afraid of the rebasing and that's kind of weird, or they just don't want to do
No, it's
extra
just,
transactions to stake it, or what's going on there?
yeah, it's just simplest path. I mean, I'm assuming everybody on this call, for the most part, has been in DeFi for some time, and we're all accustomed to our MetaMask wallets and everything else. But if you're talking to somebody and you're like, "Hey, this is a great opportunity," and you're walking them through some basics, like, "Hey, how you set up MetaMask," their fastest. It's not going to be the most efficient, but their fastest way to get involved in this is to just swap on MetaMask and get BDIG, making sure their
Yeah, I
slippage
mean-
isn't too bad. And so I'm just saying that's what I found to be the most common path. I've not advised it, but I'm just saying that's what I found to be the most common path.
The other thing that is maybe worth thinking about a little bit, or potential reason, is like tax, right? So the conversion of like Badger or Dig to BDig and this kind of like wrapping of tokens, right, has unclear tax ramifications that are very different in very different places. And so then it's kind of this question of like, well, if some, I don't know how many of these people here are actually like really being serious about trying to pay all of their taxes, but I think if you are and you've got a lot of money and you're worried about the tax ramifications, then having this like wrapping in the middle could be something that like is scary.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, not trying to go into the psychology of everything for non-DeFi users and everything, but like the point was really just that having a BDIG pool is beneficial for people that are trying to involve themselves in what's going on or believe that it's a good place to come and buy, but are just looking for an easier path than
It's the ultimate usable form of the token, I guess is what you would say.
yes, exactly.
I mean that's what we want to get everybody to. Same thing with, so there's a big roadblock there with IBBTC, right? Like minting that, like it's, to me, I see that as a huge roadblock. So same thing, right? I'm just going to go buy IBBTC, and maybe that doesn't help, but that's the easiest path for me and for anybody. So the same concept.
Hey, 1500.
I just wanted
Anything?
to go back to what Poopster was saying about the, like gamification or whatever, and then also the idea of the stability vault. Because now that you guys are talking about the stability vault, it's not in my mind what I thought it would be. In my mind, there would just be a set on Badger where I could just deposit WBTC as a user, and then that would go into the stability vault and be used towards dig stability, and then I would get some sort of like APY, based on how well the stability vault does, right, with some disclaimer that like, hey, this could not work at all or something, and then that it would solve like what Poopster is talking about, which is you don't need to be an active person trying to get dig above peg and buy at the right time. You just put your Bitcoin in to this like passive strategy.
Yeah, that's not what it is. Maybe that's something else that makes sense to build. But again, and I this is one of the concerns I had about the 20% on the bit, but like all of this stuff to really get it going needs emissions, and we spent it all.
So
Right. That's why I was like, well, it seems to make a lot of sense to me to have a vault that users could come and put WBTC in, and emissions is not just what they're earning, right? They're earning if the stability vault is successful at providing stability for DIGG, then there should be some sort of APY generated that could be shared.
Yeah, I mean, if we could find such a strategy, right, that seemed like it would work, then that'd be a cool thing to maybe try to launch. But I mean, I'm not the best financial analysis. It's not kind of my. But I fail to see how like you're going to generate a bunch of yield there. It seems to me like that is going to be a much higher risk than reward situation without some external emissions, I guess.
So we're right at about 13 minutes, 12 minutes left, and I want to see if I can summarize a couple things before taking off. I think one, just high level things, options. You're still eligible to be a part of the options program that's currently ongoing. We've unlocked on track for the 3rd day of rewards today, and buying any DIGG and holding BDIGG before buying DIGG and depositing for BDIGG before the 15th when the snapshot occurs at I think like 8 universal time, sometime around there, but that could change. But just again, buying before the 15th ensures you're eligible for that options pool, which as it current stands is 2.4 million and could potentially grow as well through this rebase. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the remaining TCL, there's a lot of thought and discussion here. I do agree with Tritium that we're above peg. We can't necessarily implement it today. There's some thoughts on BDIGG. There's some thoughts on maybe allocating some for emissions or other things. Even some thoughts on the next options round if we theoretically were to exhaust this pool. I want to echo what everybody else said, which is like, in Poe I trust. I'm gonna say like if there's Poe, if it makes sense, could we circle back and get some thoughts on this and maybe come back to the community and see what is something, if we have to kind of go back and do a proposal addendum or do something, like we can do that. But I think there's some different thoughts on TCL considering Rover Peg, and I don't know if we're going to solve them now, but we can come back with some ideas and maybe, to Tritium's point, go to council for that.
So Poe is in super focus mode this week, but maybe next week he'll have time to do that, and maybe
that's fine.
But yeah,
that's fine. And Poe, I'm glad to like get some initial thoughts there started, so you're not starting from scratch, and that way once you're out of super focus mode, you can maybe comment on some things. So that's the second thing. I think the third is that just again, I think one of the biggest things that happened last week that was super bullish was actually the Badger boost and DIGG and everything else kind of coming out together. So again, just want to remind everyone that like to boost your there's a 1500 Badger can speak to this probably much more eloquently than I can, but I think there's some really cool ways to increase your BTC yield while also taking advantage of a positive rebase, and right now for DIGG also a high APY for liquidity providers on Sushi. So I'm not going to try to get in and pretend like I know how to do that the right way, but I think there's some really cool stuff going on with that. And then I think lastly, just in terms of stability vault and stuff, it sounds like there's some ongoing work with that, Tritium. I don't know if that's necessarily a next week or two type thing, but we'll defer to you on when you think that probably warrants discussing with this group in terms of next steps.
I mean,
well, next week, Jonto is on vacation this week, but he said he'd be happy to come on a week from today and talk stability vault. I know he's been in a lot of the design process that's happening on that. So I think we can put a pin in that till next week when he's here also.
Yeah, no promises at all, but with a little bit of luck and some wind at our back, maybe we'll even be able to have something up in the experimental zone next week so that we can talk about it and then people can put some money in it and see how it works.
Yep, that makes sense. But I missed anything there?
You made a really good point about the Badger boost, and you said, I think it's worth to spend a minute on that. So yeah, like with this new boost, the BIP, I think 63, the idea was that your set vault rewards, your Badger rewards component of that are heavily influenced by how much Badger and DIGG you hold. So it used to be a different methodology, but now it looks like, holding a dollar of DIGG, it's the same as holding a dollar of Badger in terms of your APY boost. So that is another wind at our back in terms of DIGG, because it's getting that incentive pull on the set vault side. So yeah, I think, if you're in DIGG too, you should also look at how that changes your ROI on the set vault. To do that, go to the app and click on Badger Boost, and you'll see a little slider where you can play with your amount of Badger and Dig to see what tier of rewards you get for your set vault.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, to me, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a pretty sweet deal in a sense right now, right? You can get like 150% dig in the LP pool, right? And then use that to get like another 150% on an equal amount of Bitcoin in Badger. So like if anybody there's
I know.
definitely some good money. If you think Dig's gonna hold peg for a while, and you've got some extra Bitcoin, that's a pretty good move.
Well, no, it's really sweet. Like if you're holding Bitcoin and you're trying to increase your yield and you're deciding whether or not you should buy more Bitcoin, or you can buy a native token like Badger or Dig, which increases your yield and also earns an APY. Then to go deeper down that, it's like you can either get Badger or Dig, and right now, if you believe Dig will rebase and get the additional APY, it's kind of a like gains on gains on gains on gains, which is kind of like I feel like there's some cryptic tweet that could go out in Twitter that I probably would never be able to write, but there's a lot of opportunity to like double, triple, quadruple your earnings on this right now if played right.
It's like back like day zero.
I know. That's all I have. Any other questions? Again, reminder to DM POAP or DM TomZoX for POAPs.
I don't see any other hands going up, so
Real quick, there's a question in the dojo from Crypto Buddy. There were comments that the risk wasn't worth the APY right now. Is there a good way to explain the options benefit in some sort of a rerun that we can spread? So I think just kind of the point is maybe like, I don't know, making it clear. Maybe it's the cryptic tweet, right? Or in some sort of a return. I think that's what Crypto Buddy is saying. Maybe also is that we need the cryptic tweet or the cryptic tweet or somehow to get this out. Is that right?
I think it's pretty hard to describe all the embedded risk reward in LPing for Dig in a cryptic tweet. I think that'd have to be a very deep cryptic tweet.
I mean, I think to a certain extent, like Badger as a DAO can't do that, right? Because you have to make a bunch of assumptions and then we're kind of like giving some financial advice. But, like if any of the users here like can find ways to like express this in the Twitterverse and like, have at it. Vipes, there we go. Yeah, sounds like a good thing. It's a call to action.
We have 100. We had upwards of 110 people on today. This is crazy.
I see another hand up here. DJ, I think you should be able to click accept and come up.
I have an unrelated question to POAP. It's mainly about Arbitrum and rollups like that. I was interested in hearing maybe about Badger going on Arbitrum or Optimism. And this is actually a question driven by my own use of Badger, where I saw the gas fees ate up a lot of the rewards, and something to factor in with risk using Badger.
So, I mean, the answer is we're working on it, right? Our plan is that when everything starts really happening on Arbitrum, we're going to be there. Right now, we have a little bit of like operational. So every time we launch more vaults on another chain, there's like, subgraphs and bots, and there's like a lot of kind of maintenance work. So right now, we're actually like, there's a pretty big focus this week on trying to get everything deployed in a really like repeatable, stable way on Polygon, just because it's there and we can do it. With the idea that kind of then becomes a recipe book for doing it on Arbitrum. And then hopefully, like if we're pretty confident that we can get it up and running and that everything's going to keep working and it's not going to require like 3 engineers running around all the time to keep it going, I think our goal is to really be fast with that. And maybe we'll end up delayed by a week or two because we need to deal with some of this kind of maintenance issues. But like right now, that's when I said like, that is what our tech team is focused on right now, is just trying to get ready to really be able to explode cross-chain and do that in a reliable way. And that's definitely kind of part of our plan.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. I've been getting a lot of questions about POAP. So TomZoX says he has a really cool POAP design, but he can't be on the call to give them out today. So I do not have a link for anyone, but I'm going to get with him and get that link. And when I do, I will post it in the DIGG channel of the Discord, or post instructions on how to get it there. So just keep an eye on there for that message, and we'll make sure that you get your POAP for today. And if there are no other questions or comments, we should let Weezik get some much needed sleep, and look forward to seeing you all back here next week. We'll talk Stability Vault with Jonto.